Okay. Welcome back.
Don't put on the shirt, Marc-Anthony.
We have just finished watching part 12 of Twin Peaks, Let's Rock. So if you haven't seen anything up to that point, or haven't seen everything up to that point, you might want to stop watching now. Otherwise, please feel free to join in the discussion. All right, guys, what were your initial impressions?
I'm gonna let Noah go first.
Well, there's a lot to respond to in this episode. So I guess my overall initial impression is the usual sort of stunned state that I emerge from the closing credits of these with. I feel I'm sorting through it in my head. I guess my overall impression was that in the early stages, part 12 felt very momentous. I thought, oh boy, this is a key episode. A lot's coming together, and I think that might have been true. We'll probably get to the truth of that as we go through it. But by the time the episode was over, I felt like, oh, it was very slight actually, and I felt kind of like the rug of significance had been pulled out from under the episode by an awful lot of here's a million new characters and situations for you to deal with.
Right. Well, and to a ludicrous degree in terms of new characters. Especially new characters that were mentioned.
Yeah, right. Not as many appearances, but yes. And I don't know, I mean, we'll get to it, I guess, but do you want to just talk off the bat about the big thing that happened that we've all been waiting for?
First, I want to say that
coming out of the woods is what you mean, right?
What's that?
You mean Jerry Horn coming out of the woods? That's the big thing. That
yes, we've all been waiting. When was
we
that?
We have just been anticipating for months now.
Jerry Horn coming out of the woods.
Finally, now he's in a field.
But no,
right,
I think
well,
we
can save it for when we get to it.
Oh, no, that's all, like let's talk about that horn.
Well, it was such a strange feeling. On one hand, we gasped when her face appeared on screen, and oh wow, it's Audrey, and it was so exciting. And it was great to see Sherilyn Fenn, who I also thought did a spectacular job. I mean, she was really good. But on the other hand, the joy of seeing Audrey again was somewhat undercut by the fact that we were seeing her, just as I was saying, in a context where here's a whole new dynamic and characters to deal with 12 episodes in. And, I'm sure we will get the rewards we want regarding Audrey's relationship with Richard and with Cooper. But it was sort of like, here she is.
But okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was, she shows up and it's exciting, and then we are suddenly thrown into this litany of new relationships and characters, and she has very strong opinions about people we've never heard of before.
And it's also another hysterical woman scene, which happens so much, and my objection at this point is more to the fact that it feels like a formula at this point than anything else. It's so many scenes where a woman shrieks exposition at a man who she's infuriated with.
Yeah, it's true.
I feel like they gave us so much new information and so many new people that the entire end cap there did contain some information we wanted to know, but was basically just like to sit there and say, how many names can we fit into one conversation at the end of the show? Like Chuck, Richard, Dave, Virginia, Magnolia, and then say something, and it was just like, I think it was a joke because we really did.
Oh. Yeah, it was totally. And when what was her husband's name? Charlie. So he must be Charlie. That is, his name is in an upcoming episode title, right?
Yeah.
So when he called Tina, and we hear only his part of Tina's conversation, and then Audrey's anticipation and losing of patience waiting for him. I delighted in that. I thought it was one of the best things. And Seems very much like a lot of people's reaction to the whole Dougie storyline, which we got just one ball toss of today.
Yeah, and we haven't seen Evil Coop in 2 episodes now.
No, we haven't. We did, however, we saw Hutch and Chantal.
Yeah.
And they killed the warden.
Ugh.
Yeah, and then his kid comes out.
When people left. It was all the
Now it's
brooder.
time for Wendy's.
Hmm?
Wendy's a call-in. They shot the warden, and then they needed to go to Wendy's.
So, so in the early stages of this episode, though, before contending with any of that, it was moving very quickly, beginning with a lot of FBI stuff. And we get this Blue Rose history that was very interesting.
Right.
First, as I pointed out, we got the warnings before the show, and there was no nudity, which meant almost certainly there were no dead bodies.
No female dead bodies. There was a dead body, but it was male.
You don't see the whole thing. Okay. All right. Yes.
The warden.
All right. Yeah, but I'm talking about, like morgue bodies. The warden was dressed. In the morgue, you're generally not dressed in a suit.
And he was only recently a body. This wasn't a found body.
Right. He became a body while we were watching.
Right.
I almost became a body while I was watching.
So we're sitting there. They're having really good wine, probably. Tammy suddenly looks like a human being, like her hair is down and she seems normal. And they ask her about they tell her about Project Blue Book, which was stopped in 1970s, which is a huge cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
Because they said there was no such thing as UFO activity. And then so they started the Blue Rose group.
Right.
After which I wrote X-Files.
Yes. So did you feel like Tammy, like when she accepted that, it seemed like it had been something she was really gunning for? But she also seemed a little nervous about it. Like I'm starting to get suspicious of Tammy now. I'm just suspicious of everybody.
Up to this point, Gordon and Albert have asked Tammy to leave the room sometimes when they're having Blue Rose talk. So I guess it's the beginning of, like, you're an equal part of the team now, Tammy.
Yeah. She didn't seem so innocent to me. When she got it, it was like, yes.
Ambitious. I think she's terribly ambitious. But I don't know that means she's in it for the wrong reasons. I don't know. I mean, anybody's corruptible. Right. Gordon's corruptible. Gordon could be Bob. It would kill us all.
It was only pointed out to me today, by the way, that Diane has a Bob haircut. I didn't even...
It's a Bob. Not only that, it's a killer Bob.
It's a killer Bob. That is one killer Bob.
And the line "Let's rock," which we all,
right.
as with the episode whose description was Laura is the one, the episode called "Let's Rock," or they're not really titles but descriptions. We all assumed, oh, "Let's Rock" is a big deal because the man from another place said that, and it was written on the windshield in Fire Walk with Me. And Diane must know of at least one of those instances. But
what did she do with her hand?
She said, "Let's rock." So but I mean, I think you're right that she must have heard Cooper's tapes about that, because he saw that car, at least, that Chester Desmond's car had "Let's Rock" written on its windshield. So we would assume that she would know what this is about. And they were just telling her about all of these people that disappeared and how Albert had not. So is she just letting them know she's got this information? Or is she quoting some evil entity like the arm?
I guess in her mind it could be both, but
right.
But I mean, for as far as Cole and Gordon are concerned, I mean Cole and Albert are concerned, there's no reason why it's suspicious that Diane knows the phrase from the windshield.
Right. But they're already suspicious of Diane. So.
Yeah, I guess in my mind it was just that, you know, serves us all right for thinking somehow Cooper was going to burst forth from Dougie and say, "Let's rock."
Yeah.
So she said, so they asked Diane to help, and she said, "What's in it for me?" And then I started talking about something, and I missed the answer. What did they say?
I mean, it was basically to help your friend Cooper.
So they said a little bit of money and
a little bit of cash.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the town of Twin Peaks, where Jerry Horn comes running out of the woods.
And now he's in a field.
Yeah.
Is that better? Is that better? I don't know. Can he find his way out of a field?
You know, how many of those pastries did he eat? We don't know.
I'm willing to bet that he's still high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Sarah Palmer at the grocery store, which was a shot we had seen in one of the promos before the first episode aired. We saw Grace Zabriskie pushing that shopping cart and not looking like the world's happiest camper.
No, and they don't have as much of the liquor as she wants on the shelf.
You're right. She gets all the Smirnoff she can find, and then.
But she doesn't get another kind of vodka. So.
No. So
let's take that into account.
She's got her standards, and she's sticking to them.
I noticed these things.
She's very, very distraught about turkey jerky.
Okay, yeah.
She's very distraught about this turkey jerky.
Smoked? Is it smoked?
Yeah. It's just like beef jerky, only they use turkey.
Turkey jerky is disgusting from what I've had.
Okay. I have no turkey jerky experience.
I love beef jerky.
But her reaction was
inappropriate.
Yes. And as if there were implications. The presence of this turkey jerky had profound implications to her understanding and perception of the world, and she made that known to everyone.
It seemed to have implications beyond just the disgustingness of turkey jerky in general.
Right. I don't think it was a statement about the disgustingness of turkey jerky.
So who could fault her for that, according to
Full
you?
Stop. But then we did see how Sarah deals with life. She says, Sarah, Sarah, stop doing this. Sarah, stop doing this. Sarah, stop doing this. Sarah, get out of here. Sarah, get out of the store. You know, like she knows.
She talks herself into getting the car keys, and right.
And then is that when we go to Dougie and Sonny Jim?
Well, we also see Carl give one of his tenants.
Oh, that was nice.
He was giving blood, and he's like, here's $50, and don't pay your rent for a while. And I just watched Fire Walk with Me recently, and in Fire Walk with Me, Carl is pretty much a dick. He's
an alcoholic.
He is just this kind of blustering, lazy drunkard. But in this new incarnation, he seems to be like bordering on being a hero.
Kind of a saint, and
yeah. And he's always doing like very charitable things, and then and some things that are arguably magic. I mean, he can make a Volkswagen van appear by blowing a.
We watched it again yesterday, of course, to get ready for today. 5 seconds. It took 5 seconds, no more than 5 seconds, for the van to arrive.
That is a speedy van. It knows that call well.
It was just sitting there waiting.
And the van
was sitting there
waiting. Like inside of it, there was like a little cabinet where he had like a direct connection to the sheriff's office and a little coffee maker thing, and like a whole.
Right. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah, we didn't. We totally forgot about that. But that's crazy. Like he has this at his whistle and call. He has this little roving unit.
I bet there's like a stove in the back.
Right. Yeah.
Or something.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Like,
and we know from the secret history, don't we, that Carl Rod has this background in his childhood of having had a Black Lodge experience with Margaret Lanterman.
Right. They were kidnapped at the same time with one other person that I don't think we hear that much about after that. But they were both kidnapped.
Her husband, right?
No, well, her husband, that was later. This was when they were children. So,
I thought that was... Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, they were kids and they were abducted and came back and had weird experiences. But then, right after she married her husband, he was killed in a fire at Glastonbury Grove, and she took the log from there. I think, if I remember correctly.
How long? Hey.
So, but then we do have Dougie and Sonny Jim playing catch.
While we're talking about the log, I had a question last night, and you might know the answer to this. Is the log a real log? Like the prop log? Is it a real log?
Oh, I don't know.
And is it treated in any way so that it doesn't fall apart? And does Margaret take care of it?
I'm not sure.
Well, I'm going to have to do some research and find out.
For next time. I would imagine that there's more than one prop log. And I don't know how real they are, but
I don't know. Maybe somebody will answer me on our YouTube live chat.
Is anyone that's watching there? Can they?
Yeah.
Let us know.
In the YouTube live chat, Mr. Schemmeltz, who earlier commented that the show made him furious or something.
I can relate to that, Mr. Schmeltz.
Yeah.
There was something kind of infuriating about this episode.
Also says it's too late for new people unless they are planning season 4. It's hard to argue.
But these there are a lot of new characters introduced in this new thing. Let's talk also about so Hawk shows up at the Palmer house.
Right.
And
we haven't of Dougie playing
is it
catch.
Before or after Sonny Jim plays catch?
First that and then Hawk.
Right.
Because then
Sonny Jim throws the ball into Dougie's head.
And it's like the oldest joke ever.
Right. And that's it. Then that's pretty much all we get.
Okay. But there's nothing else. Okay, so in Sarah Palmer's house, the fan is on.
We can see it through the window when he comes in.
And we can see it again when she's like standing there. And I didn't get a good glimpse of it, but I think maybe the wallpaper that we see a glimpse of is the wallpaper from the painting. In Fire Walk With Me.
From the one that the Mrs. Chalfont gives to Laura that she hangs up on her wall?
Yes, she's very crazy, but her name makes me laugh really hard.
Mrs. Tremont. Chalfont. So that's possible. That's okay. So Tachyon Time Lord's asking what the log question was. So the log question was, what log is used to film the log lady's log? Is there more than one? Is it a real log, or is it something that's created? If it is a real log, or if it was just a prop, how is it preserved between shoots? What's the history of the?
And does Margaret take care of it?
And does
Who
Margaret
takes care of the log?
You mean does Catherine Coulson take care of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or did she?
Did she? And where's the log now?
Yeah, where is the log now? And now this is a question I've asked. In terms of Twin Peaks itself, when the log lady passes away, what happens to her log?
I think she's got to gift it, or she's got to be. Log would not want to be cremated.
Yeah, certainly not. I would think that she could, give it to someone else, and it would start talking to them, or she will. I don't know.
Maybe not.
Well, our friend Tachyon Time Lord chimes in that Cameron would know. Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, I assume. I'm sure he would know. And Joel Bacco also, I would know.
All right.
Sarah Palmer talking to Hawk at the door.
So yeah, so it almost seems personal with Hawk at this point. Like she really is full of vitriol. And the thing that stuck out to me that
full stop.
It's a goddamn bad story, isn't it, Hawk? Like that's what she kind of like spits through her teeth.
What's in the kitchen?
Yeah.
He said he heard bottles rattling, and then he said, is someone here? And she said, no, it's something in the kitchen.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with Sarah Palmer. And the last time that we saw her, I think, was when she was just like sitting alone, drinking and smoking, and watching
Dr.
a wildebeest be eaten alive by several lions. Right? We haven't seen her since then. That was the only time we've seen her.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time we've seen the exterior of the Palmer house.
Right.
Which, when it came up, Noah and I both inhaled, and I also realized, which I think I'm right about this, I don't know, I'll have to check it, that the Palmer house looks a lot like the Elm Street house, Nancy's house, I think.
Am I correct that it's a slightly different house in Fire Walk with Me and the pilot?
It might.
Than it is in the series.
Yeah, it might be.
There's a big tree.
At least for the series, most of it was filmed in California, but I mean, like, they might have gotten some exteriors somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we see Miriam in the hospital.
Yes.
And she looks like she's, I guess, stable, but not doing too well.
She was able to talk and tell them that what she knew about Richard.
Right, right.
So, not, you know.
So Diane gets a text asking Las Vegas ?
First, I have to point out that when Diane gets a martini, she takes the olive out, sucks the alcohol off, and then puts the olive down. She doesn't just take the olive out of the glass, which is what
she's not going to waste any of that.
She sucks it off and then puts the olive down. I noticed that today. Get a text that says Las Vegas ? And she answers in all caps.
They haven't asked yet. So she's expecting them to ask something about Vegas? Am I missing something here? Or
well, if it's evil.
Albert and Gordon didn't seem to know what they were supposed to ask her either. I mean, that's what he's saying. Can we think of something we know that we were going to ask her?
Yeah, so what?
Well, or is it whoever's texting with Diane, possibly Evil Coob or Jeffries or somebody? I mean, are they asking, like, has the FBI made the connection yet between South Dakota and Las Vegas?
Yeah, that's possible.
Because we're still waiting for that, you know, for them to put that together. And I did feel around this point in the episode too, I was feeling like the stories were feeling less separate than they have been. And partly it has to do with the cutting. Like, we're really freely cutting back and forth now, like, you know, a quick look at Miriam in the hospital and then right back to Diane. And in the vigorous first half of this episode, I thought, I don't feel anymore like I'm watching three different shows. You know, I really feel like Twin Peaks and Las Vegas and South Dakota, it's all part of one story, which of course it is. And so that was nice about it for a long time. And I that's how I interpreted that text exchange. Have they figured out yet that Las Vegas is an important part of this story? Right.
But she has clearly figured out where she needs to go. She's found Twin Peaks are the coordinates, right?
Yeah, that was something. That happened a little bit later. She seems to be recalling the coordinates.
Right. So they must know those coordinates too. Do they have a date? Do they have the same date? Do they have any reason to have a date to be at those coordinates?
I don't know, and it's also strange, like, why wouldn't Evil Cooper know that, unless it's a very specific location in Twin Peaks, he knows that Twin Peaks is the epicenter of all of this, and he came from Twin Peaks 25 years ago. So there's something we don't know here.
Yeah, I feel
there's just one or two things that are a little foggy.
Surely it'll be cleared up next week following at the latest. So then Ben Horn gets a visit from Sheriff Truman.
Yeah, that was quite a scene, actually. Truman brings news of Richard Horn and the truck hitting the little boy, which is something that ever since when it happened, it was a truly horrific piece of that episode. And then we have heard occasional references to it. And it ties in a little bit with a general feeling about this series, which is that very little time is passing. It feels to us like it's been a week since the events of the previous episode. But I think we're only a few days really into this story. So I guess it's not so unusual that Truman is just getting around, it seems, to dealing with this accident. And Ben, we learn a little bit about Richard from Ben. We keep thinking we're going to at least hear some reference to Audrey, which we don't, but as we know, that comes in later.
We kind of learned that we might be in a little bit of a time loop or time going back and running along different timelines with Nadine and Dr. Amp again.
Yeah. That's right. We see that same thing. We see some things we didn't see before, but it's clearly that same episode that he was doing. It's not just him repeating those lines.
So it's like maybe pulling us back in time a little bit and resetting us so that we know what's going forward.
Yeah, I
don't know.
Or couldn't it have been a flash forward last time rather than a flashback this time?
Right. Either way, I will never mind seeing the gold shit digging shovel commercial. I am always happy to see.
There were some new lines this time too. It went a little further.
Right.
And what did he say, Amanda? You and I both laughed hard at something. And actually, it was a little later. Maybe I wrote it down. No. Anyway, he said something really funny.
Right.
But first, you got it.
So we were talking about Ben, actually.
Yeah.
First.
Right.
And I just wanted to note that little character thing that I realized. Ben, and I've noticed it before, and I just really wanted to watch it. I don't think Ben ever stands up. Like when people walk into a room, when people shake his hand, when people do all sorts of things, he never stands up, and I think it's very telling. That's all.
That is interesting. Like he's so used to being the most important guy in town. He says that boy's never been right in reference to Richard, and he also says that Richard didn't have a father.
And then he goes off on this kind of revelry about his green Schwinn bike with big tires.
He loved that bike.
Loved that bike.
Yeah, he seems to be connecting this gift from his father with Richard's lack of a father.
Yeah, if only Richard had gotten a green Schwinn, maybe that boy would be alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk just briefly about Miriam's last name. It's given as Sullivan in this episode.
Right, right.
So you think, okay, whatever that envelope thing was, maybe we'll find out what that was all about. Maybe we won't. But then later, there's some confusion about her last name, right? Somebody...
It was, the sheriff doesn't remember what her last name is. I think it was
right.
Yeah. He says, like, it was Miriam, I can't remember. Or no, it's not.
No, Ben Horn talking to Beverly.
Yeah, I don't remember what her name is. So, I mean, we still could be dealing with two Miriams here. And, didn't Red, like, in one of the conversations where there was everyone standing around with machine guns and Richard Horn was there, and didn't he say something about pick up the stuff from Miriam? Or I couldn't tell if he said Miriam or Mary Ann's.
Right.
You know, so it's like maybe there is a Miriam that is also involved in this drug ring. I don't know if it's Miriam or Marianne.
Or maybe that's the connection, as Amanda was asking last time, or 2 times ago. Maybe that's the connection between Richard Horne and Miriam. Maybe she did a little errand running for their drug trade or something.
Right.
Someone said Audrey has a husband. Richard never had a father. I mean, we're not really sure when she married Charlie, I guess.
Right.
And it seems like that could have been, that was definitely some sort of contractual arrangement. So I don't think that, I'm not sure that this guy really adopted or took Charlie into Richard into his life.
While we're on that subject, so did I understand correctly? I mean, there was a lot of information introduced in that scene with Audrey and her husband. Did it seem like she was asking him, she was upset with him that he didn't want to go out to help her find Billy, who was the guy she was cheating on him with? Is that what happened?
Yes, that's what happened.
And he
needed to call Tina. He was supposed to have called Tina to find out what happened, but he hadn't called Tina yet. But then he kind of realized he could have some hand in the situation if he called Tina, and then blew fucking Audrey's mind when he wouldn't tell her what Tina said.
What did Tina say?
We don't even know if he was on the phone with Tina.
We don't even, that's true.
He might have just been talking. He has a rotary phone. It might not be real. I mean, like, this may be a make-believe play.
I mean, that's another thing, is that so many people are using rotary and, you know, otherwise antiquated phones in this series. It's
she did ask, do you want to call Paul? And Paul seems to be someone scary because he didn't want her to call Paul. I'm wondering if Paul might be Mr. What's his name, who is in Vegas and knows everybody in the town. Sits at the desk and answers the cell phone.
No, his name is, well, I mean, it could be him under a pseudonym, but his name is Duncan Todd.
Right.
Duncan Codd?
Todd.
Oh, right, Mr. Todd.
Before we
Todd
leave,
Codd?
before we leave Ben Horne and Sheriff Truman, though, the Cooper's Key.
Right. So, you know, Ben Horne seems pretty adamant that this is for Harry to get.
But he also seemed like he didn't want to give it.
Yeah, he holds on to it for a long time.
He wanted to keep it, and he was very reluctant to give it to Frank. And Frank also seemed surprisingly, while he did sort of say, oh, hey, you know, some stuff with Cooper came up recently, isn't that odd? He didn't seem as interested in the key as one would think he would be, considering all this stuff with Cooper that has been popping up already.
And isn't Ben's response a little strange? He says, like, oh, well, that is very odd. But he shouldn't necessarily know that the Laura Palmer case has been, you know, not officially reopened, but revisited.
Right.
But maybe he thinks, maybe he knows that Cooper has perhaps some connection to Richard Horne's parentage. So the name Cooper might mean all kinds of things to Ben Horne that go beyond the last episode of
That's very
season
true.
2.
So we had this scene with Gordon in his hotel room with Isabella Rossellini.
Yes.
A French Isabella Rossellini.
Yes.
From Blue Velvet.
Who spends half the scene just exiting.
Who learns her, who learned how to live from candy.
Right.
I mean, David Lynch, the women in David Lynch's life, like, either are screaming all the time or just are like sloths, but there's no in between. But
really aesthetically pleasing sloths. They do.
Oh my God.
Very slowly, in a way that is kind of captivating, and you can't help but just stare at their beautiful slothishness.
She was not a cheap hooker, I noted by the shoes.
You did note that. You noted that out loud.
I did.
Not a cheap hooker.
She was probably not a hooker. She may not have been a hooker. But she did say, "Wait for me down at the bar," instead of "Wait for me in your room" or something like that. So.
Well, he's got a story about who she is, which is funny, and also we get another great pun from Gordon Cole, the turnip line, where he says like her family owns a turnip farm and somebody's missing, and I told her she'll turn up sooner or later. You know, I can't get enough of this kind of thing, and it's a big part of the Gordon Cole character because of his hardness of hearing. But I also have to view this from my little corner of the world, and Mark Frost is on record as being a Marx Brothers fan, and he referred in an interview to Groucho Marx as his favorite human being. And when we get the Gordon Cole wordplay stuff, although it's spoken by Lynch, I can't help but think that's Mark Frost indulging his love of Marx Brothers comedy.
I can see it. So Gordon says he's worried about Albert?
So wait, I just want to stop for a second, because I think I'm getting kind of a sense that people didn't like this episode.
Really? Well, yeah. So Scott just said boring as fuck episode today. You think so? I don't think it was boring, honestly. But
and I saw something earlier where someone said they didn't really like it, and some people saying that they don't think they like it. And today's episode is the first time I've seen people saying, like, I don't think I like this season. What do you think is...
I did feel slighted a little bit by this one. I don't know, can't quite put it into words yet, but like I was saying at the top of our conversation, the first half seemed very rich, and the second half didn't. And I felt a little... You know, there are times when you find yourself reflecting on how this was going to be a 9-episode season, and it became an 18-episode season, and we've wondered a little bit, like, are we watching a planned tighter season spread out over 18 episodes, or is it that they realized they really needed 18 hours to do it? I'm not ready at this point to say that it's too long or it should have been 9, but you do wonder a little bit, because this episode did feel, when the episode ended, I said, boy, that was a really short episode. And then we looked at the clock, and it wasn't. It was 55 minutes when the closing credits began. But it did feel a little slight.
I do feel like it went really quickly, and that I felt like it was over too soon. But really a lot happened, so I'm not sure if I am ready to say that it was a boring episode.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far either.
I feel like it's we're having some episodes that are not feeling incredibly Twin Peaksy all the way through, and I think that sometimes we get some dialogue that is, or some reaction shots that are. Actually, I think we are getting plenty, but you know, I think we are getting some dialogue and shots and shooting and storyline of just normal TV. So I don't know if that's what people are reacting to. But there's a lot of quiet time where people are just acting with each other, and that's one of my favorite parts. When like Gordon and Albert are just staring at each other, and it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I could watch it for like
yes,
at hours.
The Gordon and Albert stuff is endlessly entertaining to me, and I think certainly one of my favorite things about this. The Gordon and Albert stuff is all great, and one of my favorite things about this whole season is David Lynch's performance.
Yeah, I think both, seeing both he and Miguel Ferrer having that great chemistry and interaction with one another, especially knowing that Miguel has passed away since the filming of this, it's great to see one last great outing for that duo.
Who else do you think in this season exhibits such chemistry that you just want to watch it regardless of what happens?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I am really just absolutely loving Naomi Watts as Janie E. She's just been one of the biggest stars for me of this series, and I didn't expect that. When she first showed up, her introduction, I really wasn't very fond of that character. I didn't really get what she was about, and the more we've gotten to know her, the more I've loved her.
I love Detectives Fusco.
Oh, agreed.
Detectives Fusco should have their own show. And the Mitchum brothers, too, get more entertaining every time we see them.
Yeah. Yeah,
those are my guys. I watch them stare at each other especially now after the damn cherry pie. Watching that again today.
Oh,
when he says, "What's in the box?" and he says, "Cherry pie." I mean, it's just.
He's like 5 years old. It's great. And just, I mean, that whole, your candy cut is perfectly healed. Like, candy cut is just.
Your candy cut. Yeah, those guys can really work the camera.
I also really. Bushnell Mullins is one of my favorite new additions as well. I loved when he was doing push-ups in the last episode on his desk.
So then at this point, and in my notes here, we have, I wrote down here that it was 9:34 on the clock. So we're halfway through the episode now. And we've already talked about almost everything significant. I really do think it was an episode that ran out of steam.
I did write down a quote, "The rug of significance gets pulled out from under you."
I think I might have said that at the beginning of...
I wouldn't have read that quote you said. I think it was like in the show.
You cut out a little. And
Audrey said something about having a dream, and then she's like, maybe it's just a dream, but also there may be significance to that. Is that where that comes from, or?
No, I mean, it's a direct quote. The rug of significance gets pulled out from under you, because I wouldn't have said that. And no, you didn't say that. I'll have to look it up. I think it was a direct quote.
I did say something like that at the beginning of this conversation about how the early parts of the episode felt very significant, and I felt like the rug was pulled out. But maybe I was...
wow! So like, if I watch this whole thing, I'm gonna like find you saying it like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, but maybe I unconsciously absorbed it from the episode. That's possible too.
No, I just made a note, and it was in my notes.
But was it notes that you took during the episode?
Yeah, but it was all off to the side, saving paper.
Well, I don't want to pull the rug of significance out from under your notes.
Can we talk about something else, please?
Let's talk about the girls in the booth at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Once again, some new characters we've never met before showing up at the Roadhouse.
And she said this girl, Angela, had disappeared for 2 days or something.
Right.
Makes me wonder if didn't we hear about, oh no, that was in South Dakota. Never mind.
And then there's someone named Trick that's under house arrest.
But he came running in and was all like.
Right. And his hand was like doing the thing that Gordon's hand was doing in the last episode, and that a bunch of people's hands were doing at the end of season 2 of Twin Peaks.
It was? I didn't say that. Ah.
He like sat down and he was like, ugh, really quickly.
What was he like?
He was, ugh. That was, although it was just one hand. It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
And the sound effect that I made did not accompany his hand shaking.
It would have been better if it had. But so she was saying like this girl and this guy were together, and he was somebody else, and Clark. Is that his name?
Yeah. We talked to people named Clark and Angela. And at that point, I was kind of like, I'm not even going to try to remember who all these people are or all these new situations. But it is an interesting direction because, and in the comments on YouTube, Rosenfield 10 and Tachyon Time Lord are both touching on this. But, we've been saying that the original Twin Peaks had this soap opera quality, and Invitation to Love was a meta commentary, and that this season isn't like that at all. It's not soapy, and that's maybe what some people miss. But it is true in a way. We are seeing some genuine soapiness because it's the classic soap opera trope of like, I don't really love you, Bradley. I really love Stephen, and constantly bringing in new characters, and there's no organ sting when a new name is mentioned. But there is something distinctively soapy about the sort of, I don't know, the soap opera trope. Like, I don't really love you, Bradley. I really love Stephen. And constantly bringing in new characters, and there's no organ sting when a new name is mentioned. But there is something distinctively soapy about the sort of, I don't know, the soap opera trope. Like, I don't really love you, Bradley. I really love Stephen. And intricate maze of characters and situations that are pulled out of thin air.
I'm just glad neither of those girls had an underarm rash.
Oh God, I think about that so much. It's like I don't ever stop thinking about this freaking rash.
So sorry.
Not your fault.
So what about our predictions last week? Did any of us
Stone.
anything on the...
Is it time for Feces of Stone?
Yep.
That time.
Well, to review the predictions that we made last week. Last week, Amanda Sisk predicted that the fingerprints on Dougie's coffee cup from 1,000 episodes ago were going to lead the FBI to Las Vegas and Dougie. Now, that hasn't exactly happened, but with Diane's text message, we may be getting closer to a connection between Las Vegas and the FBI. So, not quite a fulfilled prediction, but something. Marc-Anthony last week predicted we would see Big Ed. We did not, but this was... But we did see some old friends. We saw Audrey for the first time, of course, and we got a little more time with Sarah Palmer. Last week, I predicted that Dale Cooper would say something, meaning not Dougie Coop repeating something that's been said to him, but he would utter original syllables. Not only did that not happen, he didn't even repeat anything in this episode. So I was wrong on top of wrong. So all of us head into next week's predictions being basically wrong this week, except for Amanda, who was kind of 25% right.
No, it wasn't right at all. It had nothing to do with anything.
Well, your prediction had to do with the FBI catching on to the Vegas Dougie connection, and
yeah,
something like that did start to happen.
So what does everybody think?
Well, I'm going to stick with my standing prediction, and even though I can certainly see this not coming true, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with it. I think that we will see Agent Cooper in the next episode. And the main reason I'm sticking with this is that the last episode, not the one we just watched, but the one prior to that, it really seemed like a farewell to Doug. It was the limo driver that originally dropped him off, and remembering the red door, and then the lady that called him Mr. Jackpots, finding him and talking about how she now had a little dog and all of that. All of the things that were part of Dougie's storyline were kind of harkened back to, and then we seem to get lost in this melody. So I think the next episode we're going to have an emergence of Agent Cooper.
Okay. I'm just going crazy here with this one. Just wackadoo. Norma is gonna die.
Wow. Okay, so
Cooper is going to die?
Norma.
Oh, Norma is going to die. This is your
Norma's gonna die.
wackadoo. So then her entire purpose in the season has been to sort of look on as Shelley makes bad choices and grimace?
Yes, okay. She has been, like I said last night, she's like this silent oracle, but she's not going to do anything, so they're going to kill her.
Okay.
My prediction is that episode 13 next week will include a significant exchange of dialogue in the Red Room. Since the very earliest episodes, we've had occasional visions of the Red Room, but no extended scene. I think we're going to see some more significant exchange of ideas that take place in the Red Room. And to recap, Marc-Anthony says Agent Cooper is back in episode 13. Amanda Sisk says Norma is going to die.
Someone's written, that's one prediction that I predict is wrong, and I think that's mine.
And I predict a scene in the Red Room.
Bang.
So that was this week's installment of Theses of Stone.
Let's see, we got a couple more comments here. The hours countdown theory. In last episode, they can't wait to kill Dougie. Can you wait 3 hours, as in 3 hours of the season?
Yeah, I think I've got to think more about this comment thread.
Right.
I do have a question, though. If Dougie is presented with someone running at him with a gun, his instincts kick in, and he like takes the gun, pushes Naomi Watts out of the way, like flips her, does all this stuff, boom.
Mm-hmm. He didn't do the boom.
The kid throws a baseball at him. He just stands there and lets the ball hit him in the face.
Yeah, right.
Maybe he just knows that he's not really being threatened. Although he's braver than I would ever be in the face of a game of catch.
Just saying. Did anybody else have any big problems with this episode? Or just little problems like that?
I think the only problem I had was not exactly the same as Noah's, but a kind of overall feeling that there was something unsatisfactory, that I wanted a bit more from this episode in some way.
So in that Audrey scene, in the scene with Audrey and her husband Charlie behind the desk, one of the little pieces of information that comes out in their dialogue is Chuck stole Billy's truck. Is this the truck that Richard Horne was driving?
I mean, that was what immediately came to mind, but it doesn't seem to, like, that would mean that Billy is the guy that was telling Andy to go away, right?
Right.
Like, I can't talk to you now, I'll meet you later at Sparkwood in 21.
But didn't...
That was going to be my prediction.
A character named Bing, played by Riley Lynch, runs into the diner at the end of episode 7, I think, and says, "Where's Billy?"
Where's Billy? Yeah.
Where's Billy? Yeah.
Right.
That's right. That was the point where customers all chained in the diner.
Does somebody have YouTube open? Because I hear an echo of our conversation.
Yeah, I'm hearing a double too.
I have it open but muted. Maybe I need to close it. But our friend Mr. Schemmeltz is talking about Cheryl and Fran being pissed. And that is something.
Yeah, I just asked him why.
That is something. Well, we do know, like, she has indicated on Twitter, I believe, that she wasn't completely happy with the direction her character was given in season 3. Or I don't know if it was the substance or the amount of stuff she was given. She apparently wasn't completely.
You're in this really fascinating vocal room. I don't know how we're supposed to get rid of this.
What?
So I mean, Sherilyn Fenn's role certainly is not what we were expecting.
Well, I mean, she doesn't look like she used to, and I don't know what to do with her. But does seem to be a very odd way of presenting her.
Well, I mean, if we had been seeing her, like if this scene had taken place, several episodes ago, we would have said, okay, we've been introduced to the old character of Audrey, and we're slowly establishing what her role is going to be in this story. But since we've been waiting 12 episodes to see, one of the most beloved characters, it feels like we should have been waiting for something more significant when we finally see her. And I think one of the reasons this episode feels unsatisfying in a special way is because that makes us worry that the other big thing we've been waiting for might also be anticlimactic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Charlie didn't, Rosenfeld 10 says, Charlie didn't tell Audrey what was learned from the phone call from Tina, because Tina just told Charlie that Audrey's son stole the car and ran over the kid. That's certainly a perfectly viable theory. That's likely, yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to Billy for a second, I just wanted to say that there was that scene where what is Bing is looking for Billy, and then all of the customers change in the Double R diner.
Yeah.
There's like some kind of, I mean, it could just be an editing mistake.
Yeah, we puzzled over that when episode 7 happened, and I wonder if that means anything. And then episode 8 kind of wiped our all our episode 7 questions right off the table.
Those are minor compared to what we've just experienced. All right. Well, have we hashed it all out for tonight? Do we have anything else we want to say before we head out?
Well, I guess on a housekeeping note, we can say that the show is going to be on at 8 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time starting next week. So Faces of Stone will start at shortly after 9 instead of shortly after 10. And also, anybody who's following us and watching and listening to the conversation who wants to interact with us, you can find us on Facebook. Twin Peaks Faces of Stone is the address of our Facebook page. And you can find us individually on Facebook or on Twitter, where Marc-Anthony is M.A. Macon with underscores. Amanda is president of Sisk, and I am Noah Diamond.
All right.
Sorry, guys. Faces.
Thank you for joining us for Faces of Stone.
Faces of Stone.